Fear is the number one thing that will hold you back from ever living the life you wish to live. I think a lot of us aspire to have a life of peace, aspire to live a life of happiness, aspire to live a life where we have purpose. But I think we fear the actual process that it takes to step into that life. The process that it takes to actually accomplish true peace, true happiness, true self-love, and things like that. Sometimes that could be a painful experience. And I think a lot of us are just afraid, or we fear feeling, like actually feeling feelings, actually feeling the pain and just like the challenges and the discomfort that it takes to actually become the person who we want to be for ourselves. And fear limits us in so many different ways in our life. It limits us in our relationships. It limits us in pursuing after our goals and our dreams. It limits us from actually making change within ourselves and actually like growing ourselves as a person. In my experience with fear, I think a lot of it comes from us trying to control what's out of our control, or us trying to think so far ahead and always be prepared for life. One thing I've started to understand a lot over the past 2 years is that sometimes you truly don't know until you just take the risk to find out. You truly don't know until the moment presents itself right in front of you. And I think a lot of us spend so much time constantly trying to avoid feeling the inevitables of life, feeling the inevitable pain, feeling the inevitable uncomfortable situations, feeling the inevitable negative parts of life that there is no way to avoid. A lot of us stay the same, and we stay in this comfort zone, and we stay in this bubble because we're constantly scared of facing new problems. We're constantly scared of facing maybe a new pain, or creating a new life that we aren't familiar with, or that we aren't comfortable with, or we don't know what to expect will come with it. And that holds us back from seeing so much growth within ourselves, but then it limits us to always staying the same, which then creates a life that we get bored of and that doesn't truly fulfill us, and it doesn't truly make us happy. But that fear of actually stepping into the unknown outweighs the fear of remaining the same. And so in my own experience with fear, I've sometimes just learned that you have to step into those uncomfortable situations, and sometimes it is going to be painful. Sometimes it is uncomfortable, and you have to learn to navigate through them in the moment. A lot of us try and prepare so much for what life may throw our way, whether it might throw financial problems our way, whether it might throw what someone might say our way, whether it might throw this specific result. And the real reality of it is that you're never truly prepared, and it's never either as bad or it's never going to be what you envisioned it to be. A lot of times when moments do arise and they present themselves, it's not exactly what we picture in our head. And just learning that there is no way to avoid certain negative things. I think a lot of us hold ourselves back. We suppress ourselves because we're scared of what outcomes we might get, whether that's how somebody might respond, whether we upset somebody without having the intention to upset them, whether that's trying to downplay a certain situation, or we're trying to make it not seem as harsh as it really is, or we're not expressing how we feel because we don't want this specific response or this type of backlash. I feel like oftentimes we create our own suffering, and we create our own just not happiness within ourselves because we don't even show up for ourselves, because we're scared to show up for ourselves, because we're scared of feeling what it's like or having to deal with certain situations that might come with that, which again are just inevitables of life. There's never going to be a certain point in time where certain people just won't get hurt. It's impossible to always satisfy everybody. And if that's continuously your goal, to go out here and constantly downplay things and always be a people pleaser, you're really just gonna end up hurting yourself. You either hurt other people in a way from their own interpretation and their own receiving of your authenticity and your feelings and stuff like that, or you just hurt yourself because you're not showing up for yourself and you're not expressing how you feel. In the end, you really just got to decide who's going to get hurt. Even with myself over the past year or two, I think I held myself back from truly expressing how I felt in certain situations out of fear of how other people might respond, due to whether I might lose them, whether they might see me in this certain way or perceive me in this certain way, and just the results of making that decision, truly expressing how I felt in that situation. And the situation is going to be what it's going to be. And I think it's your willingness to adapt, like I've mentioned in previous videos. to adapt to whatever results life presents to you, your ability to move forward regardless of if you lose certain people, if things don't go your way, regardless of what feelings might come along with whatever results you get presented with. You can't be afraid to feel in this world, because you'll constantly hold yourself back and limit yourself. I think a lot of us want to change. I think a lot of us want to go after certain goals and stuff for ourselves, but we're afraid of feeling failure. We're afraid of feeling mistakes. We're afraid of feeling the pressure to perform. We're afraid of feeling the journey that it takes to actually bring those visions and that dream into a reality. The feeling of having to work hard, the feeling of not having to give up, the feeling of having to continue pushing forward even though we don't exactly want to, the feeling of having to learn how to overcome challenges and sometimes having to fall down and pick ourselves back up. A lot of us fear feeling those actual situations to the point that we don't start at all. We always have in the back of our mind like the worst case scenario. We always think that, hey, if I do step into this situation, I'm not prepared for the worst case scenario, which again is just a made up thing in our head. A lot of our fears are really just made up. In fact, they're all made up, because it's literally our imagination creating a scenario that isn't an actual reality, or that isn't actually present to determine our actions. And I always tell people, you can't allow your fears to dictate your actions, because then you're just really ruining your own growth. You're ruining yourself from ever stepping into situations you actually want to step into. You're ruining yourself from showing up for yourself and actually going after the things that make you happy, going after the things that make you feel you have a purpose in this world, going after the relationships and things like that fulfill you as a person. There's always that possibility of what ifs, and I think we just always automatically go to the negative ones. We never think about the positive what ifs. We never think about the possibility of growing, the possibility of learning, the possibility of better understanding certain situations as we step into them. We always try and lay out this exact plan and have everything completely figured out. We know how to counter this move. We know how to counter this result. We know how to counter if we get faced with this failure or this adversity, this challenge. There's no way to truly understand what life has in store for you, is going to throw your way until you just start the journey. And I think that's what a lot of us get caught up on. We don't know what to expect, or we don't know what might be out there, to the point that we stay where we do know all those things. That could be just a toxic relationship. That could be toxic friends. That could be making change within yourself, changing your habits, changing your old ways. A lot of us, we fear letting go of our old life. We fear letting go of our old self. We fear letting go of the things we've always known for so long, and we know how to navigate. We know their patterns. We know what to expect. In our relationships, we know when they're going to be toxic. We know what gets them upset, what gets them angry, what makes them insecure. It's familiar. We know how to navigate it. Even if it's not healthy for us, we know how to navigate it. So we would rather stay here rather than go out into the unknown, possibly have to learn somebody else, possibly have to get to know somebody else, and then have to learn their patterns all over again and not know what their patterns are and what possible pain it can bring us. And a lot of us also fear the process of change, the process of literally feeling the grief of letting go of our old self, letting go of old people, letting go of old relationships, while still understanding that it's actually what's best for us. That's why a lot of us try so hard to change people into who we want them to be, because we know on the reality side, if they don't change, we don't want to be in this situation. We don't want to be in this relationship, and we don't want to have to deal with the grief of having to let that person go and move forward in life without them. A lot of us fear building a life without certain people being in it. Imagine envisioning a life without your mom. Like that's a painful thing to envision. Imagine envisioning a life without someone you were possibly married to, or someone you've been in a relationship with for years, and then all of a sudden them no longer being there. That's why we try and fix as many things as we possibly can, because we fear having to start creating a reality that no longer has certain things that we've always known. And the same thing goes for change within ourselves. Letting go of making excuses, letting go of our sense of entitlement, letting go of our beliefs, and truly embracing an open mind and understanding that we might be wrong about certain things. A lot of people fear the feeling of embarrassment to the point that it limits them from ever making change within themselves. ourselves, because when you make change, it requires you to do something new. And when you're learning to do something new, guess what? That comes mistakes, there comes failures, there comes you not, again, knowing what to expect to come your way, it not being a familiar territory, that discomfort. And so a lot of us end up staying the same because we fear the process of changing, even if it's for the better of improving ourselves. You know, you got to get to a point where you're no longer afraid of feeling. You know, that's why a lot of you guys possibly don't want to get into relationships ever again. That's why a lot of you guys end up settling for where you're at and no longer growing and going out and trying new things for yourself. And just like growing into a new, better version of yourself that you probably want to become. You know, you have to get rid of that fear of feeling embarrassment. You have to get rid of that fear of feeling discomfort, or sometimes not even get rid of the fear, but just face it. You know, sometimes you have to face uncomfortable situations. You know, I've had some tough conversations through my life. I've had to tell my mom some tough things. I've had to tell my dad some tough things. But in those conversations, I understood why I had to face that fear. I understood what would happen had I not speaking up for myself and spoke my truth, spoke my feelings, spoke about what needed to be spoken about. You know, I might have been nervous in that conversation. I might have been uncomfortable in that conversation, but you know, that was the only way it was going to get done. I couldn't allow my fear of what could happen, all the scenarios I made up in my head, or what I knew the results were going to be after the situation, actually feeling those results. I couldn't allow that to dictate my action, because had I done that, I don't know where I would be at this point in my life. You know, sometimes when it comes to our fears, I think it's important that you understand why you fear that certain thing at all. You know, a lot of our fears allow us to discover things within ourselves that we're probably insecure about, or that are triggers that we haven't yet healed, parts of ourselves we haven't yet healed or learned to overcome. You know, it could be you caring about other people's opinions. It could be you being scared of being hurt again, or being scared of being vulnerable, or, you know, being scared of people knowing you and possibly taking advantage of you, like whatever that looks like within your life. You know, sometimes you have to question that fear and then discover why you're even afraid of it, and then discover the parts of yourself that you need to heal. But when you understand the impact that fear has on you, you understand how it limits you as a person, you understand how it holds you back from growing into that best version of yourself, reaching your full potential, turning your dreams into reality. You understand like how it keeps you in places that keep you suffering. You know, when you understand the impact that fear has on your life, you can't allow yourself to continue like sitting in it. You know, after hearing this video, you have to start discovering your fears and understanding how it's holding you back as a person, understanding that, hey, I just got to embrace taking action on this specific situation and just go for it. And a lot of the times you're going to figure it out along the way. Like the fact you have a vision to make change, to go after something, I promise you, you're capable of handling that situation. You know, if you're still alive, if you're still here on this earth, you've overcome every hard time you've overcome every uncomfortable situation, you've overcome every fear you've ever faced. Like, you always just figure it out. You always just go through the motions. You might fail, you might make a mistake. Hey, you go back to the drawing board, you learn how to continue moving forward. It's a process of trial and error. It's a process of figuring out, and you don't have to speed run through it. It's not something you're gonna automatically become comfortable with, but it's, again, over time, you're creating a new comfort zone for yourself. Just how where you're at right now was once new to you, hey, this eventually will become your new norm, and this will become your new comfort zone. And you never want to get to a point where you stay comfortable in life. Like, never get to a point where you never stop stepping into new situations. You never stop trying to grow as a person, because that's the only way you're going to reach your full potential and be the person who you were truly called to be on this earth. But I appreciate you guys for tuning into the video. Hope you learned a thing or two. Be sure to join up on the Discord, as well as sign up for one-on-one coaching in the description. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.